Greetings all, Dustin here from GameTyrant, here to share my Endgame Sorcerer build that I've been playing with in Diablo 4. Now, there's been a lot of legit complaints out there that there's only one or two viable Endgame Sorcerer builds out there. And after playing around a lot with different skills and specs and gear, I haven't seen anyone using this one in particular. Now, granted, this isn't perfect. It does require some dodging and some skill. It is not the easy button, but I find it fun and interesting. So check it out. Let's dive right in. So let's start out with the skill tree. I'll just briefly go over these. So I first off go with a spark. I max that out and select these two enhancements. And then going over to Chain Lightning and Devastation, Elemental Dominance. You can see what I've selected here, mostly focusing on that right-click Chain Lightning is my main skill. Flame Shield is my main defensive skill with these enhancements. And then I max out Glass Cannon. If you want to get real risky, try to find some gear, and then Frost Nova, as well as those enhancements. Hydra is one of my main attacks. I always try to find helms that have +2 to Hydra, and then Conjuration Mastery as well, so that I can kite those enemies with the Hydra. And Static Discharge for my Crackling Energy makes picking off things real easy. And then Unstable Currents is my ultimate, which I get close damage and I just tear through enemies at close range with Coursing Currents as well. And then finally, Veer's Mastery. Now, switching over to the Paragon board, this is quite a mess, but I'm just going to do the highlights here. I try to focus on anything that's non-physical damage, some resistance, and then the Ceaseless Conduit Legendary, damage to elites, and then over to my Conjuration attack speed, skill damage, mainly to kite those enemies with Hydra. Finally, let's wrap up with the gear of the Sorcerer build, and even though I've been cursed with some bad drops, I focus on these aspects. Healing for close enemies, so I'm not so squishy. Gaining armor over time, once again, to make me not so squishy, and then increased damage for standing still, which makes a huge difference when you're up close. Barrier as damaging elite enemies helps, and then becoming unstoppable for 4 seconds while injured. Critical strikes, increase attack speed up to 44% is huge. Dealing 48% more damage to frozen enemies with my Frost Nova. 1 additional Hydra, which is of course critical for kiting. And then finally wrapping up with Chain Lightning as the chance to chain to 2 additional times. So even though not perfect on the gear and the aspects, I try to upgrade, and then I use those different types of elixirs to damage the enemy type when I'm in nightmare dungeons, etc. So as mentioned, this isn't a perfect build, but it's a lot of fun. I find it challenging, but also fun to play. Sometimes I just melt through enemies. Others that have lightning resistance or fire resistance become a little more difficult. But either way, hope you have fun with this. Feel free to drop any comments, suggestions, feedback, and see you in game.